Hi everyone in English 1301, it's Dr. E and I'm here with your week 5 instructional video. So as usual, let's go ahead and jump over to the content area. Just as a friendly reminder, we have all of these resources on the left-hand side, so make sure that if you ever have a question or concern about something that's going on with D2L, or if you have MLA questions, anything related to the course, if you want to get in touch with Dr. K, everything should be available somewhere in here, and if not, definitely reach out and let me know. And then of course below all of those resources we have our weekly modules. So let's go to week 5. So for this week we have 2 chapters to read, and I cannot emphasize enough how important these chapters are when it comes to academic writing. Chapter 28 is about quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. So Lunsford and our text editors really get into not the rules, but those kinds of guidelines that are associated with utilizing research and how we do that properly, effectively. And then that moves really well into chapter 29, which is about giving credit and avoiding that dreaded P word, plagiarism. So these are really good chapters to read together, and I think they have been done really well in our course text by our editors because the information is really approachable. I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed by those rules about using research, and it's so much a part of academic writing, but I think the examples and the information provided are just really helpful. And I'm just going to say that it becomes obvious to me after this week who has not fully read these chapters. So know that I will keep an eye, right, on the way that you're quoting and summarizing and doing all of that kind of work because it's so much a part of academic writing. All right, so you're watching the instructional video, and I do have an MLA video that I'd like you to watch. It's from before, but it's, I think, just a really approachable video about what MLA is, how to use it, how I specifically want some of those things to be addressed for you as a student who is writing. So just take some time to view that. There are multiple questions on this week's quiz about that video, so make sure that you're taking your time when watching it. You do have a discussion that's due on Thursday, and then you have your participation quiz. All right, so it looks like a standard week, right? We just have an additional video to watch. And then I also want you to note that we have a complete schedule for the whole semester. Now know that that is always potential. There's always potential to change just based on how we're doing. But then I also have a link here on how to set up Remind. Some of you have mentioned this working for you in past courses, so I'm going to give it a try, but I am going to flat out state that I am new to it, so hopefully I am using it correctly, and you the same. If you have experience with Remind, then please feel free to go ahead and share or post in the Q&A area. And then if you go down to the to-do list, this is just how to set up Remind, and this is an actual link that will set you up in our course. It's not a requirement at all, but it's something that students have said is really helpful in courses. I can post things in the D2L announcement area. Not everybody, I think, has set up those notifications, and sometimes Remind is just a little bit more useful, especially if you want to get in touch with me during our student success hours. Some of you text me through Google Voice during those hours, and that's completely fine. You don't have to stop doing that. But Remind is also something that's available to get in touch if you have some questions, and I'll send you reminders. All right, so our week 5 discussion is going to be based on that reading for this week. So you'll have one paragraph that's about chapter 28. And you need to identify something that you learned, right? So I think there's always something to learn in every chapter. Why is this a new idea? Why is it important? You want to make sure that you're really providing credit for any of the ideas. And I always say, just go ahead with Lunsford. She is the overall text editor. There are various other editors, but I think it's just easier. Just go with the main person. And when you're quoting, utilize Lunsford's name. So you'll want at least one quote that's supporting your idea. Okay, and I put here, don't forget to utilize those useful signal verbs, and that is something that will be familiar to you after reading this chapter. Okay, in the second paragraph, you'll essentially do the same thing with chapter 29 on giving credit and avoiding plagiarism. Remember, you want one quote always explain its relevance. Like really put what you learn in these chapters to use in this set of paragraphs. I put here, just as a general rule of thumb, we really want to avoid dropping quotes into paragraphs. And that just means you have a paragraph and you just kind of stick a quote somewhere. It may not necessarily be relevant. There's perhaps no explanation. There is no credit given. It's quote dropping. It's confusing to readers, but it also it runs the risk of improperly crediting or not crediting the person for those ideas. Okay. And I wanted to make a note here. Dr. K got in touch with me and noted that there have been some concerns about the lengths of paragraphs, and I can understand that, but that's really something I don't want you to focus too much of your attention on. I give a general recommendation of 6 to 7 sentences when research is included, and that's only because you need space. You need sentences to introduce and explain your quote and make sure that it's a part of your paragraph. But I'm not going to count sentences if you are doing everything you need to do within the sentences you provide. This is really just a guideline because I've sometimes in the past had people who wrote maybe 3-sentence paragraphs, and that's just not enough, right? That's not enough space to fully explain ideas and include research. And there are some folks that maybe need to be a bit more concise, right? That need to limit their writing because they are perhaps using like 15-sentence paragraphs, and that's way overwhelming. It leads to a lot of confusion. So note that your goal is just to effectively communicate your ideas in that paragraph and utilize research when that's required. But again, that research requires some context and explanation. This will become a lot more clear in these chapter readings for this week. Okay, so remember to click start a new thread, utilize your name. You won't see this, don't worry about this. And then you can always put your preferred pronouns and make sure that this is your preferred name. Not necessarily a fun nickname that you have, but this is what you would like to be called in your college classes, okay? And then just go from there. Make sure that you're addressing everything. Make sure that you're editing and doing all that you need to do in order to get the best grade possible. Okay, so if we go back to week 5, the next thing is going to be just generally our participation quiz. And remember, that will include questions from the MLA video. From this video, the random word for this week is going to be circle, random. And it will include questions from this week's reading. So it's just important to make sure that the quiz should essentially come last after you've done all that you need to do. So remember that you want to respond to 2 of your colleagues by Sunday, and you want to make sure that you're doing this work on time. So set up, any kind of calendar reminders, and I will really start to try to utilize Remind to help with some of this. Now, please don't become too reliant on it, as I'm not going to be reminding you of every single thing, right? Because it's too much and it becomes, once you get another text, it's just, you're not paying attention, right? It's like, oh God, another note from Dr. E. So I want to make sure that I'm using this in a useful way. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, but utilize that Q&A area. I'm so appreciative of those of you who are doing that, and those of you who are letting me know if you see any things that are questionable or concerning. If you look at the complete schedule and you find something that just doesn't add up, I've looked at it so many times, but you help me peer review, right? Like, I've looked at it so many times, but that may mean I'm not seeing my own errors, right? So if you see some things, just go ahead and let me know. And as always, make sure that you're always considering some time with Dr. K if you have just writing questions, academic support kinds of questions. Dr. K is there for all of those. Okay, so take care, have a great week, and good luck.